For those of you joining us for the first time, this is where you can discover the transformative fusion of Eastern wisdom and Western science to elevate your journey towards holistic health, wellness, and success. Our channel is your ultimate resource for mindfulness practices, evidence-based fitness tips, and cutting-edge wellness trends that inspire balance in mind, body, and spirit. With us today, we've got the absolute master, Chuck, myself, Edward, and we're going to introduce a very, very special guest today. Her name is Erin. Erin's website is called Rising with Erin. The title is Channeling for Change. Erin Renville communicates with souls on your behalf. She's a prophetic channeler and energy healer located in Virginia Beach and can deliver messages and healing with people around the world in person and remotely. Her strong prophetic gifts were passed down to her through her grandmother and great-grandmother. Wow. Most channelers communicate with beings and spirits that are deceased, and they identify as mediums. Other channelers describe themselves as psychics, channels with souls that have passed on through death, your soul or a soul related to you. She believes that a soul remains forever on or off the physical plane. The definition of channeling is a belief that a person's body has been taken over by a spirit to impart wisdom. Channeling is a powerful means of spiritual awakening and conscious transformation. It is a knowing beyond knowledge. Erin knows that the messages and healing that are channeled from the Holy Spirit through her that allow people to be open and invite the living Spirit of God and the love of God to enter their heart. That is how the healing takes place. Erin, I'm going to stop there. There's too much incredible information about you that I've discovered online. Notwithstanding what I've heard from Chuck here since he first met you, and almost every time that we have communication, he mentions your name. He talks about some experiences that he's had with you. I am going to ask you some questions about that in a moment, but first up, we just want to have an update from the man himself. Chuck, last week we spoke about you about to go into your surgery, some of the anxiety that you were facing. Also, I believe some of the self-belief that this was the beginning of the end for you to be able to move forward from here. And seeing that photo of you today, I'm going to share that. I'll share them. But yeah, seeing the photo of you today, absolutely energized, positive, happy, big smile on your face. Leah there behind you as well. I can see that she's had a lot of weight lifted off her shoulders as well. So Chuck, maybe for our listeners that have been following your journey and very, very interested and supportive of your recovery, sending a lot of love towards you from all over the world, tell us about going into that and the experience and now how you're feeling a day after.
Yeah, it was totally different than last time. I think you do anything more than once, you get a little bit used to it, but it was a lot of deja vu. And I had moments where I sort of recalled, wow, last time I did this, I was thinking this way, and I just observed how different I was thinking about it. And, there's several moments where, like last time I called the kids before I went into surgery, and I just broke down and started crying. Natural stuff. But this time, called the kids right while I was in the gown and everything because I forgot to call them before they went to bed the night before. I'm in my surgery gown. They're pushing me through surgery real fast. I got in there at 7:30 in the morning, and surgery was at 11:30 in the morning. So, because they did the evaluation, they did the ultrasound, found out exactly where it was, confirmed the same thing on the CT scan, and said, okay, here's a game plan. Let's get them ready for surgery. So I had to hurry up and talk to the kids. No crying, completely confident that I'm going to be fine, right? Just how the mind has so much power for me was what I was observing. Just multiple moments of, guys and nurses coming in and introducing themselves. And I was able to have a better state of mind to ask more questions because I wasn't fearful of how this thing's going to kill me. It was more educational, more empowering, and a much more confident Chuck going into it. For example, I had no idea that medullary cancer is only in the thyroid. I just assumed that medullary thyroid cancer was the name they gave me because that was where my cancer was. But, of course, they educated me before that was the C cells becoming cancerous. The downside of it of the medullary and the C cells becoming cancerous. And the way it was explained to me before is that radiation and chemo aren't effective. So, you leave that with a patient's in the patient's conscious. You're thinking, uh-oh, like, I hope the first round goes good, because if it comes back, you're not talking like that to the surgeons or the doctors so that they can educate you on how inaccurate that is. But maybe you've thought it once and it just stuck in the back of my head. So that when all this sort of calcitonin and CE levels came back up, that's when I had this huge roller coaster of fear and emotion. And thankfully, I have had all that because I've really sought out a lot of resources, communicated a lot better this go around, to reduce a lot of those stresses and roller coasters. But, I literally was conscious enough, calm enough, maybe is a better way of saying it, to ask the surgeon, like, hey, is there C cells that become cancerous throughout your body? Like, is there medullary, like, colon cancer? That's a legit question, right? She just looks at me. She's like, "You silly boy. You're not a doctor." She didn't say that, but it was in her eyes. She's super nice, and she was like, "No, C cells only exist in your thyroid." I was like, so it's just like just knowing that itself calms me down too. So if it ever does come back, which it won't, but if it ever does appear, it's likely just going to be around the neck, and then just kind of go in, and this will be my vacation surgery home in Tampa.
Like, actually, to be honest, I was really, really surprised that you agreed that we were going to have the podcast today, like a day after, because I thought there's no way after having like a major surgery like that he's going to be. I thought you'd still be in hospital, like lying in the bed, on the drip and everything. But here you are. I saw your photo out to dinner, and then here you are back at home, and except for the ice pack around your neck, you wouldn't know. Like, how big is the incision? And like, how long did the surgery take? Just for those that don't know,
Yeah,
including
yeah.
me.
No, these are good questions. Not stuff I think to bring up either, so appreciate it. I'll share the incision here in a minute, and then I'll get my assistant to come put the ice pack back on me. But yeah, the surgeon basically came in and was like drawing on my neck. Before last time she drew on my neck, I had no idea that this was going to be that big. She started on my neck when I get this thing off, and she goes with a Sharpie, right? And she just comes in like an artist. So that's the only incision. But she came in before, took her little Sharpie, and was like, "We're gonna start here. We're gonna start here. We're gonna start." And then she kept going, and I'm like, "What are you doing, really?" She's like, "Boop, all the way over there." And I was like, "That's gonna be that big?" So I had no idea going into the first one it was gonna be like that. And she's like, this time she was drawing on it, and I was like, "Oh, good. You're just staying right here." And she said, "Well, you're lucky I didn't do a full, like, left side and right side lumpectomy, because some people she's got to cut from here to here." But yeah, I mean, the surgery was supposed to be a half an hour. It lasted an hour. She was just being really careful around the carotid artery, because it was right. They had to go like behind the carotid artery to get to it. It was a very hidden lymph node, and yeah, it was crazy. They had to. This guy John was like a physician's assistant. I remember him from the last time, and he is just like Mr. Bubbly. And he just comes in. He has his way of calming you down. But even last time, it didn't work for me. But this time, we had good conversations. And he took a needle before surgery. He numbed the area a little bit, and he put blue dye in the actual lymph node that they wanted to have surgery on, so that it was easier for Dr. Roy to go in there and find it out of all the other lymph nodes and make sure that she was cutting that out. But when he put in the blue dye, and it was only like 4 drops, it expanded the lymph node and it pushed up against my throat, and it was the grossest feeling ever. No, that was the most pain of the whole experience, was just adding blue dye to this thing, and it made it go from like 1 millimeter or centimeter to like maybe 1.5, and I could feel it. I immediately looked at Leah because I walked to the surgery room, or the surgery bed or whatever, and it, she was like, "How's it feel?" I was like, "I can't really describe it. All I know is that if this thing were to have gotten bigger, like I didn't have the scare in January and then go see the go see the doctor and then have a CT scan and everything." Because remember, in January I was just working, touching my neck, feeling stuff, and dropped to the ground and started crying because I thought I felt it come back. But what I was feeling wasn't even this thing. I could not have felt this thing was way back there. So I looked at Leah and I said, if if this would have gotten bigger, I would have definitely noticed it because I would have had a hard time swallowing. I would have had a hard time talking because it was so right up against that throat. It was weird. I was happy to just lay down and have them cut it out after that.
And like, what's the volume of the material that they took out? Like, how big is
Yeah,
it?
I have a picture that if I can get Leah to bring over to me, I'll share it on the screen. I don't know the exact size, but I think the size of the actual lymph node that they were targeting was about a little over 1 centimeter long. So not
So we're talking about like they took out the lymph node or they scraped off the
they
lymph
took
node.
a whole lymph node out and some of the I don't want to say veins, but some of the stuff around it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Wow. And what did the doctor say advice wise going forward? Like, what does the next
Can't
few
lift
weeks look
anything
like
over
for
three
you?
pounds for 3 weeks. Can't submerge it underneath water. This is a glue, so this will eventually kind of fall off. And then this is where my scar was actually a little bit thicker. Like over here, it's healed really well. I don't even think you can barely see it, right? But this part was actually a little thicker, so I got a little cosmetic work too while I was there. She took some steroid needles and popped them in there, and it should reduce some of the actual size of the scar. I did go for cosmetic work. I could say that now. And yeah, I mean, at this point, she basically came in and she said, I really like you guys, but I don't ever want to see you again." So it was,
Yeah.
it was, it's a cool experience because I mean, at the same time, I'm here in beautiful sunny Florida. I got to see and get reminded that I picked the best place. You know, you go into this surgical area where everyone's getting prepped for surgery, and there's probably 15 to 20 bays, and they're all filled. You know, so it comes across your mind, you're like, is this really that many people in this area that are going through thyroid cancer? That's crazy. Because you know they're back to back to back, filled up almost all day, every day. So I had asked around everyone that was coming in and poking me, you know, like, where are people coming from? And she said Dubai. She said South Africa. She said like Asia, all over Asia. She's like a couple times they were saying there's weeks that go by they don't even have enough Floridian that comes to get surgery here because everyone's coming. They're the best of the best, and everyone's coming from all over the world to do it. So shout out to the Clayman Thyroid Cancer Center.
So this is an informative episode as well for anyone that is considering or facing something similar at the moment. You can reach out to us, send a private message, and Chuck can give you some details on that as well. This is someone who's got firsthand
Mm-hmm.
experience going through something like this. Now, looping back to Erin, a few weeks ago, Chuck and I said, you know, if it's just Chuck and I talking every week, people are going to get bored with us. So how about we bring some special guests on? And then we made a list of people that we would like to invite. And I'm happy to say that you were number one on the list. And Chuck reached out to you immediately. So we're very, very grateful that you're able to join us today. The introduction that I read on the website is quite deep and detailed. It's very interesting that this is something that you learned and was passed on from your grandmother and great. So perhaps you can maybe just do a self-introduction. Tell us a little bit about that journey, like, you know, how you came to be the person that has this incredible gift that you're able to
Well,
share with the
first
world.
off, thank you for having me because the way that I look at it is exposure, education. That is such a profit to me and my spirit, and the reason why I do what I do. Mainly, I want to say, first off, we all are always in a process of healing. And so for me, my healing started more so as an adult once I had gone through having a massive multitude of different traumas affecting me throughout my life that I'll specifically state. But it all started basically when I got a divorce and all of my spiritual gifts started to basically activate. Where clairvoyance started happening, and I thought that I was going crazy. I was really having a meltdown of psychosis where I really thought I was going crazy. And then I started to look to try to find my community. to try to find who I could trust to go to that could guide me a little bit with understanding the things that were happening with me and all the things that were going on in my life that were falling apart. And I found a place that I was spiritually just guided to. And I went there and I met someone that I'm going to mention. Her name is Erica Edwards. And she basically took me under her wing and said, I got you. And one of her friends said, oh, I'm going to do a Reiki healing treatment on you. And I'm going to do it for free because you need it. It's going to help activate you. It's going to accelerate your process, yada, yada, yada. And honest to God, I didn't believe it. I was a total skeptic and I always question everything. That is the basis of my existence. I would always ask a ton of questions. And so I allowed Cynthia, was her name, to do an energy healing on me. And when I laid down, she basically went through the whole process with me and went over my heart and just started doing a lot of different energy work, different symbols and things like that over my heart, over my head, over my my genital region, which is that creative chakra. It's where creation, it's the root, it's the sacral, it's all these different things that you're holding. So all of the original traumas or your childhood traumas. And so she's working on all these things. And when I get up, I said, oh, okay, I feel light. I just felt lighter. And I started walking around and I noticed that my heart felt lighter. And I didn't know that your heart could feel light, that I had so much heavy energy on me from everything that I had gone through. And so when I started walking around and realizing that, and then I started realizing my mental state was clearer, I was more relaxed, I wasn't so impulsive, I was more collected when it came to my emotions. I was able to process things with more peace, with more clarity. And it wasn't, I'm seeking peace. It was, I have peace. So when I already had this ability of communicating with spirit that had crossed over, I had the ability of energy pickup. I was very, very empathic. Discernment was always a key note. I could pick up if somebody's lying to me or they don't believe what they're saying. Instantaneously I could feel it. So I said, well, shoot, I'm going to ask Erica if she'll teach me Reiki. And she taught me Reiki. She went with me from Reiki 1 through the master course. And she essentially told me, she says, you know that you've always had this, and this is something that's been passed on from this lifetime to prior lifetimes. You've always had this. And so you're basically just remembering it. You're just remembering it, and you're going to have your own practice. You're going to do other things, but just start here. So the ability of what it did for me, ultimately, every single pathway into the desire to give it to others. I instantaneously connected to all the jobs and all of the traumas and all of the individuals from a very young age, because at 5 years old, that was where I had the most trauma originate. And essentially, I went through each and every trauma and realized that the Reiki, what it did to me was it cleared out so many of the areas where it made me feel unworthy, where I had insecurities about myself, and that I wasn't really doing things for me. I was doing things for everybody else. So it made me very disciplined and it made me accountable. It made my life clear away the clutter and realize that when things are falling apart, they're actually coming together.
Mm.
So every time that you level up in life, you have to let go of that old personality or old identity. And in order to grow into that next level of awareness or connection to God, connection to your creator. So I'll let you, you can ask me whatever you want to ask me, but I could go on and on and on.
I do believe it's true that, like, I've met some clinical psychologists before, and almost every single person that I've met that does that type of work has come from a trauma background themselves. And I think the journey of self-healing or learning how to work through trauma yourself is what opens up the gift for people to be able to help others. And that's certainly what you've just shared with your story. I just had an interesting thought. You're helping Chuck to open up his gift. I believe in the future he will be a healer as well.
The way that I look at it is
For other
that
people.
that is the beauty of when you are a practitioner, I believe, not everybody, I can only speak for the people that I know and for myself. But for people who have the discipline, who hold themselves accountable, who are always digging into the reflection of self, the way that they can always strive to become healthier, because that's the goal, is just the healthier you are in every facet, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, you got to be working on all of them all at once. You can't just say, oh, I'm only going to work here. That's not effective. So when you work with people and when you give them more of a universal perspective on their life, then their gifts will open up and they will become more disciplined and they will become more accountable. And in doing so, the idea of build a relationship with God, it should be like your highest, right? That is it. When you build the relationship within yourself, then you build your relationship with your creator, with God. And by doing so, that clarity through that spinal cord, it actually is the channel. It's going to pull through you from the bottom to the top, to the top to the bottom, and it'll move through you energetically so that it literally will teach you what is good for you, what's not good for you. And it's your awareness, it's your protection, it's all your senses. So ultimately, absolutely, the more that someone is committed to healing themselves, the more they're accelerated into their awareness and all of the different six, senses, which is source, it's creator, it's God. So if you already have that, then you are walking in faith all the time. You're walking in favor all the time. But it is a commitment. And what I do understand, when I first met him, it was the first time him and his wife, they came separately. It was a beautiful experience for both of them, I believe, that they got to have on their own as individuals, which I thought was pretty awesome because I don't come across a lot of husbands and wives that really do that. So that was already a point, like, okay, they're in their journey. They're on their own individual journeys and they're honoring that. Boom. Perfect. The next time that he came back to me, which was the most recent time, his energy already felt light. His energy already felt so healthy. And when he did his consultation, his reading with me, that is essentially what came up was, you have nothing to fear. Of everything that you had that you have to get redone to take out, it's going to be done. It's going to be finished, because back here is dealing with past stuff. And that's where it was lodged. So the collection of all those cells was just in all honesty, a good thing, because it was collecting that toxic energy and forming it into one. So once it collected enough, it was done. And now you just get it done and you take it out, and you don't have to worry about it because you improved your communication. And that was the biggest thing. People that get energy work done, or the practitioner, your work is going to be as good as the practitioner does the work on themselves. So if you are someone that does work on yourself, we're all energy healers. It's just, to what degree have you healed yourself? And he did that. So he was really essentially healing himself. And I'm just a tool. I'm a tool. And he can access it when he feels low, and I'll help him bring it back up. But everybody is their own tool. And that's the beauty of, just educating people on this process and not making it woo woo. It's literally just you building that relationship with yourself. And you just need helpers along the way. I want to be a helper.
That's beautiful. Erin, I get asked a lot when I bring up the topic of Reiki. What is Reiki? And it's been years. I still don't have a great answer for that. So could you summarize that for us?
Okay. Well, first off, I have to pay homage to the originator. All right. Master Usui, I want to say his name. I probably chopped it up terribly. And then he taught that as a monk, he had gotten blessed with going to a mountaintop and basically receiving information through meditation, continual meditation. That he got these symbols that were very universal. You're talking about the shoku which is actually the spiral, which you'll see in all different cultures. And so you have that as a power symbol. There's a lot of powerful symbols there that he received, that he basically was said, you can heal people using these symbols. He went and he shared it, and he passed that knowledge on to, I think his name is Hayashi. And when Hayashi opened up his clinic, he spoke with Miss Takata. Miss Takata actually was a foreigner from the United States, from Hawaii, and she went back to Hawaii and passed it on. So, giving that breakdown, she imparted wisdom that had never been shared over here. And essentially what it is you're using your energy, and you're using the consciousness or the universal energy, and you're essentially taking all of that, the natural, okay, earth, wind, fire, water, all of these different elements, and you're essentially connecting to the universe, to the all, to God. So it's pure love, it's pure energy. And when it comes through you, when you connect with that, and when you've done a lot of healing work on yourself, like I was saying, you'll generate that, and you can actually harness it, and you can pull it up, and it'll literally run through the practitioner's body first. And then you can pass it through long distance, which is actually stronger than in person.
Really?
Because it takes more of an intention, more of a focus. So you have to be very intentional with that. Whereas in person, you don't have to touch the person, or you can touch the person. It depends on what the situation is and if they have any type of issues where you don't want to be pulling on their body physically. But you're transferring your energy, the work that you've done, and your intention. That 80% of healing that happens is because of the intention of the practitioner. It's only 20% of the symbols. It's only 20%. So if someone is loving and their intention is to heal you and to help you and to guide you, and they're functioning from a pure space, not from monetary, not from, oh, I know it all, but literally just from a loving, compassionate state, then they're going to transfer that energy into you just by simply directing, okay, we're going to put the energy into this person. And then you're people who have done it for quite some time, they don't need pendulums or anything like that. They'll be able to just literally scan the body with the hands. And then through the hands, you'll be sending energy into the body, and the energy knows where it needs to go. You don't need to really direct it. Once you get really aware of yourself and you can pick up on things that are getting triggered, like if my hand starts to crack, I'm releasing energy from you, but my hand is cracking. So there's different things that if you're attentive and you're paying attention, you're directed. And then, even to expand on that, remember when you were in your reading, I wasn't doing Reiki on you.
Mm-hmm.
I was literally just connecting to that ability or that intention of where does he need healing. So it really translates more to, if a person ready, regardless of where they are, they'll receive the healing because the intention is pure, and the intention is just to send healing. Overall, I would say it's one of those processes, like I said, that if somebody has worked on themselves and they are constantly working, the amount of healing that can transpire between the person that is open and ready, because that can stop a lot of stuff. If a person's questioning and they really don't want to do it, then you're not going to receive as much because you're not matching my intention.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're really open and you're ready, there's no telling the amount of healing that can happen to whatever degree you're ready to heal. Because like I said, this isn't just one area. It's healing you mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. So if you have trauma connecting to sexual abuse or abandonment, if you have drug addiction, if you have any type of illness, dealing with a heart condition, dealing with a blood condition, dealing with stress, and all of these different, sleep disorders, things like that. They literally, once the body starts to calm down, cortisol is going to balance that out, and it's going to start to fuel the body with its natural pharmaceutical. It's the inside of your body is going to produce all of the things that need to happen in order to naturally heal. And the two main points that I would say that are so extremely important is that you have to heal that creative area, which is the genital region. You have to heal that chakra system first, and then you start to work on the head, because then the mind can calm down, that area can get dealt with, and then you go to the heart, and everything kind of has a role to connect and play with. But those are the two main areas, because if you can get somebody's mind to just relax in like a meditative state, for instance, if you can get them there and they're knocked out and they're sleeping, it's an open area for you just to remove. And I think that, I could, like I said, this is something that I could build on and I could go into, because I'm in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something that I have to sell. I think that's the biggest thing, is like, when you try it and you're open to it and you're open to really receiving, and you have a relationship with the person that's doing it, that you can have faith that they're having good intentions and that they're a good human being, that you literally will experience more peace. And then you're not having to worry so much. It literally is just going to calm your whole life down in a way where you can make conscious decisions, and you can start to say, I don't have to seek it anymore. It's already here.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not ready for it, I'll be the first person to say, don't do it unless you're ready to be disciplined. Don't do it if this is just a one and done. If you want to do a one and done, just know ahead of time that you're not going to see all the full effects that you could possibly see. But if that's your journey, that's your journey.
Yeah, exactly. What are your definitions of discipline? Because they can't see you every hour, every day, or even every day. So what type of discipline do you encourage people to
A
practice?
lot of the So with discipline, when it pertains to me, I'm a mother of 3 children. They're all very different. I got a 13-year-old, I have almost 8-year-old, and I have a 2.5-year-old. And then I have a grown man that's living with me as well, so we are a beautiful blended family of different energies. So that, taking into consideration, and the discipline with that, is learning how to make sure that I am accountable for what I am responsible for. And I am responsible for taking care of them. I'm responsible for providing safety, providing a healthy home. So that means I have to eat well. That means not eating processed foods. That means cooking meals, because that's also bringing the family together. It's connectedness. It's sharing the day. It's talking about things. It's being vulnerable and saying, hey, I got upset with you over this. No matter who they are in the family, we have open discussion like this. We are vulnerable, because that is a discipline. When you are intentional with owning the things that you could improve, which is a big thing for me, is be accountable for your words, be accountable for your thoughts, be accountable for your actions. Move your body every day. Don't be lazy thinking that if you're just sitting around and you're not actively participating in your physical, and you're not releasing and detoxing that energy buildup, it's gonna have to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Mental. I have to constantly be aware of my mental state. Is my head clear, or is it hot? Because if your head is hot and you're getting headaches all the time, you're holding too much energy up here. What are some things that you could do? You could meditate. You can do all types of meditation. I paint. This is my painting. It's being able to release. Maybe it's writing, but it's the release of the thoughts in that spin. Because if you can make peace in your mind, then your mind is now the master. You are the creator. So I can create the life that I want by thinking thoughts and creating images in my head. And then I can put them down on paper, or I could sit there and daydream about it. That's another form of meditation. It's very much individualized, and being able to understand myself and understanding certain emotional triggers that I've had due to abuse of various things in my life. I'm able to kind of check myself, because I can understand where that came from. So it's really a lot of communication. I think a lot of it is based on open communication, and knowing and understanding what you hold and what your intention is, and not being the victim. The discipline is always being mindful of not ever wanting to be in a victim state. And so if I'm not in a victim state, I'm always the victor. I'm always growing. I'm always expanding. Everything is intentional. I'm always safe. I'm always protected. And by chanting that, you start to create a belief. So your beliefs have to be you have to be very disciplined in what it is that you want to believe in. And that's the discipline. It's every day waking up saying, I can do anything. I can believe whatever I want to believe. I have free will with that. So because of that, I always need to operate in the free will, creative victor mentality, and be aware of when someone else that is close to me is showing me that, because that is a reflection of something inside of me if it's in my reality, because you are your world. So it goes deep, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to build this discipline for a long time because I came from, like I said, I'll list them off. It's like sexual trauma, abandonment, drug abuse, alcohol, the unworthiness, all these identity issues, promiscuity growing up because of what had happened to me, all the unhealthy habits, putting myself around people at a very young age that were always incarcerated. They were always incarcerated. And I would always be the one of the defenders. I would always be fighting. I'd always be the warrior. I'd always be putting myself in the hood, putting myself around the people that valued me
Mm-hmm.
and that I felt a part of, I felt connected to, and I felt purpose. So it really is based on where someone needs to be disciplined. Where have they experienced lack? Because if they've experienced lack and they've experienced victim, then I need to address that. That's where I need to go in order to make them accountable and responsible and empowered.
Mm-hmm.
If they have that, sometimes they don't need the Reiki, because the Reiki is just the energy. It's just that loving energy, just like if a child falls down and hurts themselves. The first thing that we want to do is go and grab them and tell them it's okay and love them and kiss the boo-boo. And that's, to me, that's Reiki. That's Reiki. And you can call it whatever you want to call it, but it's just the transference of your love and your energy that creates that sense of, I'm safe, I'm okay.
Is the energy transfer something that loops, like it goes both ways? It's not just you sharing your love and energy with people that you're working with, but it comes back to you as well,
You're
right?
Absolutely right.
Is that how you have
The
a really
left side of
effective
your body is how we release.
session?
Or excuse me, pardon me, I have that backwards. The left side is how we receive. Your right side is how we release. We cast the energy out from all the different areas. But if we cast the energy out from the right, that means it's really leaving. And so essentially your circulation of blood and of the energy is really a form of cleansing. So when I am imparting any type of energy work into someone, as long as I'm pulling from external sources, and I'm not just doing it just from me, I'm very mindful with that, because I don't want to connect with the energy that is unhealthy and absorb that. That's how a lot of healers actually contract a lot of cancer and issues. As long as you know how to ground yourself, you're able to receive that energy, because that energy has to pass through you first in order to give it. And so as I'm removing it, I am also removing any of the blockages, because the energy, remember, is if I have to remove, let's say, energy from the heart or energy from the throat, if I'm doing that, I'm being mindful to my throat. I'm connecting to my throat to his throat, or my throat to her throat. And so I'm removing that intentionally as a mind, because I'm looking at the anatomy inside of my head of, I might not know human anatomy, but I know where to go. I know somewhat of what it would look like, and I'm going in for that. So as I'm doing that, I am connecting to healed energy. I'm connecting to that loving energy. So when I give treatment, I receive treatment. Giving is receiving. And, like I said, you can connect this when people say, oh, I don't believe in that, or it's evil and things like that. There's a lot of misconception about this, because most of the time it's more Christian, that people might be offended. And a lot of Christians come to me. A lot of them will come to me because I'm able to explain to them that this is actually spoken about in any type of holy text. Any type of faith base is the understanding of you're imparting that energy and you're able to release it. When you give, you will receive. When you give purely, when you're not doing it for selfish purposes, when you're not doing it for a purpose that is superficial, let's just say, you're doing it purely because you just want to help somebody because you know what it did for you, then you're always going to be open to the receiving end of that. And it's going to just constantly give to you and constantly open doors that need to be open and shut doors that need to be shut. And like I said, it's accelerated motion. And going back to this understanding that we're all one. We're all connected. So if we're all connected, I am him and he is me, and you are me and I am you. And so we're all just sharing our wisdom and our knowledge because we all are connected. So if I'm connected, then the power that I have to heal myself is the same power I have to heal him, and vice versa. So absolutely, that's 100%. And the best thing that I could think of is all the children that I've worked with, the animals that I've worked with, the results that I get when I bless the food every night with the shokure, when I bless medication, when I do anything, and I'm doing it with the intention of bringing that pure energy in, it's always going to produce and it's going to give back to me because it's a constant exchange, like you said.
An interesting thought just came to mind. You mentioned animals. I absolutely love dogs. I've been a dog lover all my life. And I find no matter any dog anywhere in the world, whether they're somebody's pet or just a dog in the street, I have a calm energy and dogs seem to like me. They seem to come to me. But I do know other people that even without doing anything, the dog has a different behavior with that person. Maybe fear, maybe anger, maybe a little bit aggressive. Can you explain that?
This is another thing.
Do animals have a sense that
You look
we
at
are not
Egypt,
aware of? Is it
Mesopotamia,
something that humans
where
also
they worship
possess?
cats and they had dogs, and they looked at them very differently. Different animals have different abilities. What I would say to that is that most of the time you could compare animals and children very similarly, because to a certain state, they're very pure. They're not carrying a lot of that low frequency energy or that depressed, low vibing connection. Whereas with animals specifically see your quantum field. They can see things that are more in that spiritual realm or that different dimensional realm where we don't necessarily see it at with our eyes. They can sense the energy. Much like what I was saying to you is I've always had this kind of BS meter. I know if somebody's trying to mess with me, I know if somebody's trying to confuse me or gaslight me. I might not say anything, but I'm aware of it, and I let that sit for a minute to try to understand it. With animals, they're very much more animalistic. They're more reactive. They're more impulsive. So they immediately connect with whatever natural frequency an individual or a place or an event like weather is having, because they carry certain energy waves. So everything has a vibration, right? States of matter. So if something carries a specific vibration, that's going to cause an ultimate honest reaction from an animal that you can't deny it. So I'm a cat lover. Love dogs too. I love all animals, but I'm a cat lover. If someone comes in my home and they don't like cats, that's very different than if my cat does not like you. If my cat ultimately goes and doesn't like you or is trying to fight you right off the bat, it's like, we need to put up some protection understandings here, because that person is not carrying energy that wants good for me. It's a very, very honest response. And that could just be that person not being like healthy. They might be operating in a very low frequency, and maybe that's what they're picking up on. I won't try to like label it, but yeah, the animals are highly attuned. Like, they're so highly attuned, you're not going to get a lie from an animal unless that animal is sick, right? If they're unhealthy, they could try to bite their owner trying to get them healed, but that's because they're unhealthy the same way humans are. If a human is unhealthy, they're going to think that they're doing the right thing, but their compass is off. They're not clear. So they're easily manipulated. They're easily triggered. You know what I mean?
And it's so funny that you said that. I feel like my whole life I've almost like jokingly called myself like the
One of
animal
the
whisperer because like every animal will let me pet them, and I just love all animals, and I've never had one bad experience with an animal that's like growled at me or tried to bite me. And I just joke around with Lee all the time. I'm like, I think I'm an animal whisperer. But it's so cool that you guys have really just made sense of that from a frequency standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason I brought it up is because sometimes it's the same animal that behaves differently with different people, even in the same room, like two different people in the same room, same time with the same animal. It's different behavior, even if both of them don't know the animal. So
But
I was
remember
just
what I was
curious about
saying, when
that.
it comes to energy
Is it
exchange,
because I love dogs? Is
80%
that why they
is
love me,
intention.
or is it something else?
So if that dog wants love and you also want to love that dog, you're now connecting and you're healing each other. Because our animals that are pets are our healers. They are the ones that clean the house up with their energy, moving around the house. They pick up everything. That's why if someone is sad and they're moping around a lot or they're ill, tendencies happen with animals that they're next in line. So we have to be very mindful of what we are carrying, because the energy that you have is naturally going to pass on to the animal that you have in the home. Like brushing a dog or taking a dog on a walk on a beach or being able to just love on them, you're transferring healing energy to them to clean them up, so that and you're doing it intentionally. You're saying, I'm going to clear you because you help clear me. You understand? So when we do that, you have healthy animals, you have a beautiful, relationship. And a lot of people, believe it or not, they don't know these things. And so once you make them aware, they're like, oh my gosh, and then they have a better relationship.
Yeah, you mentioned the word intention a few times, and it reminded me of when Chuck came to see you. He had an intention, like it was his choice to come and see you. He wasn't pushed to go and see you. And many years ago, I was a fitness trainer, and there was a big difference between a person that came to me because they had some personal goal they wanted to achieve, compared to someone that was given a gift voucher to come and do a class with me. The person with a gift voucher, they're pushed from behind by somebody else to come and see me, and it very seldom turns into something long term. But the people that have that intention, just like Chuck, when he first came to see you, he had a need, and I guess his need matched with the energy that you were able to share with him as well, and that's what I guess makes us a successful case. But there must be cases that are not always successful like that as well, right?
Yeah,
Chuck is a great example because
so
he's
like I said, there's been
super loving
situations
human,
where
but
people
maybe
are
it's not
nervous.
always like that.
They're hesitating because they're unaware of what my intention is. So they have fear. And so a lot of the times, if people say, oh, I want to get an energy healing, I'll say, well, let's do a reading first, because I want them to know I'm authentic. I'm nothing against cards. I don't have any problems with Oracle or tarot cards. Don't have a problem. Don't come for me. But at the end of the day, that interferes with my gifts. And so if I sit down and I start telling people things that there's no way that I would know, because sometimes I don't even know the person's name until the day of. I do that intentionally. If I can connect with them on that level where they now don't even, it might not be the energy work that they believe in, but they believe in me. So if I can get them to believe in me, I naturally now have a leg up, so that they're not wasting money. They're not wasting time. I'm not wasting time. I'm not wasting my energy. And I value that a lot, just the same way that I want somebody else to value it. So the thing is that if someone is in a situation where they're feeling pushed into doing this, or if someone has a hesitation, then you're not going to get the full benefits, especially when those people tend to not come back necessarily consistently. It might be a financial thing where I have to work something out and just set up, a plan for them because I want them to get better. And they want that. A lot of the times, the success stories are way more than the not. The ones that are not so successful is when they have unrealistic expectations. They've waited so long that a situation that was hopeless, that they could have gotten some assistance for, they put themselves so much in that victim mentality, and they're still not believing. They're still not believing that they have purpose. They're still not believing that there's more life for them. If they've given up on their life, you can't force that. You can't force healing there. That is usually the only situation where I will say, oh, they walked away with nothing, in which I really never have had that experience, because even if someone walks away, they will tell me, because I'll follow up with them typically the next day, is if they follow the rules that I've basically laid out: no alcohol, no sex, no drugs, no exercise, no interaction with people, for the most part, just being solitary with yourself. Being able to understand your energy and being able to take in that piece to reset your energy, because now you're not collecting it from everybody else. There's no way they're not going to feel that. There's a peace that comes with that. Even if it's not a physical, ultimately like a deep physical response, your body will feel healthier and you will sleep better, or you'll have more clarity. Sometimes it is physical. Sometimes that physical layer is the first thing. So if somebody has soreness, they feel better. If somebody has an issue where they haven't slept, and I'm working on them for that, it's very tailored. But the responses of people not really getting anything, I think that really is just more when someone is expecting to get nothing. If they already have that hard grain wired into their programming, then that's just the way that they choose to be. And I'm not going to force that process. I have to respect where they are, in their journey. But I can say I've never had a bad review. So I feel very grateful and blessed for that, But I attribute that more to the ability that I've continued to work on myself. And I give grace, to God, that I have a lot of ancestors, like you mentioned, this has been passed down. This is something that's been passed down, that I know I have a lot of strong energy surrounding me. I know that this has been my path. It's always been my path. I just needed to figure out the best path. We do
You
our
must have
best,
a very
the person,
harmonious,
if you have a
loving
partner that is
household,
really
even with
balanced,
3 children and a
if you
grown
have a
man.
healthy relationship, let's just say, if you have a healthy relationship, like my significant other that I'm actually going to introduce you to at some point in time, I'm going to give you his information because I've told Chuck about him briefly. You have to understand that if they're healthy for you at that time and you're meant to grow with them, whether that be your children or whoever is in your home, they're going to push your buttons. But they're pushing the buttons that you need to address in order to get better. And hopefully that's being done in the most understanding and loving way, and not in the form of an attack. Sometimes you are the master over here of certain things that they need help with. So in my home, it's a constant balancing act. It's a constant balancing act, because we both, as adults and as people who love each other and who are very committed to each other, in every single aspect, it's like I know that he doesn't intentionally ever want to hurt me. And so I'm able to take a moment and to reflect almost instantly, like, okay, he's not trying to hurt me. I need to hear what he's actually saying. I need to really listen to what he's saying instead of trying to prove my point. And the same goes for him when he is off and I tell him, hey, you really need to pay attention to this, because this is something that you could do better at. We're always trying to help each other. So my children are all gifted as well. They were born that way. They all have their own little special gifts spiritually. And so we are, as a family unit, because we share the same belief systems overall of God and of how energy works and the mindset, that we impart that wisdom into the kids. And so even if they're having a tantrum, we're not sitting here indulging in that, and we're not going to treat you like a baby. We're going to treat you as we know that you are capable. And so my house is very loving. It's very peaceful, but at the same time, you have that duality, because they're all growing in different stages. And that's the same thing with all of us, no matter what your age is. You could be 80 years old and act like a 10-year-old. So Where are you healing? Where have you still trauma?
Yeah. I think Chuck and I are both two very lucky gentlemen that we both have a wonderful significant other. We've shared stories about each of our relationships, and I think we're blessed to have met the people that we have met on this life journey. And I just want to go back to Chuck because I've seen an evolution in Chuck since I've known him. I've known him for, let's say, around about a year. And I've seen an evolution in this human that's unbelievable. You know, when I met him, he was a hardworking executive, talking, sales oriented, you know, like a CEO, professional speaking person, and very very focused on that single goal. But he has become like, just maybe he always was, but you know, what he's shared with me over the year that we've known each other has been an absolute transformation and evolution. And he says a lot of that is to do with what he's learned from you. So let's say Chuck's trajectory is like this. What advice do you give to Chuck and people that are in a recovery journey, such as Chuck, around the world as well right now? What advice do you give to them if they're able to see you or not able to see you? But what can people do themselves to be able to open up
it is
this
like with Chuck. Chuck
this
is very
healing
much,
journey?
you know, he's got goals. And I think that's extremely important, is to be focused on what you want. What do you want? You have to define what you want. A lot of people say, I want to get better, but they're not willing to do the things that they know are hurting them. They're not willing to let those things go. And so the accountability and the responsibility that people want to have, I would always say, sit for a second and evaluate where you know that you could do better. Where in your life are you allowing things to have a space? Because whatever space you're allowing that energy or that toxic type of energy to hold space inside of you, that space that you're allowing it to hold, wherever it's connected to, whatever fear or anxiety or, you know, victim state, lack state, it's going to affect that area. It's going to cause illness, and it starts with the stress. So, learning how to sit still and to just be quiet. Just to be quiet, you know, that's a very hard thing for a lot of people to do, is just sit and be still and get quiet. Because in that space, you're in the now, and you can ground yourself in what is right now. Let's not think about the past. Let's not think about the future, but be here right now. What's going on? What do I want? What do I really want? And am I really like ready and willing to do whatever it takes? Because that is what essentially it comes down to, is, are you at that hopeless state to where you're really ready to surrender now? Are you really ready to just let it all go and to just have faith, to trust that everything is going to be what it needs to be? If people can get there, I would say the next step is, if you've never done energy work, whether it's with me or somebody, like I said, that somebody investigates and they trust and they know that that person is committed to healing themselves first, I would say get a healing treatment, because there's no better experience of understanding this than just having the experience. That is how we learn. That's how we expand. So it's stretching yourself and opening up yourself in such a way that you are willing to hear a different perspective. You're willing to hear things that you've not experienced yet, so you're unaware of it. Make yourself uncomfortable in areas that you know aren't going to hurt you. If they're not going to hurt you, why not? But a lot of this comes down to what people's belief systems are when it pertains to their spiritual practice and their faith base. A lot of it comes down to their culture of what they have put themselves in their environment, their families. And so, yeah, I would say the best thing is that you get still and get quiet, because that's where God is. God is right there in the now. And when you sit still, you can say, I have peace. I have stillness. And when you connect with that, you're only going to create more of that. You're only going to find more gratitude with the things that you do have, down to starting by saying, I'm grateful for the breath in my lungs. I'm grateful for
Yep.
my nerves being able to work. I'm grateful for my neurological, my brain functioning. I'm thankful for my eyesight. I'm thankful for my hearing. I'm thankful for my taste buds. I'm thankful for being able to move. You know, when you start to focus on the little things become the most important. So if you are so out here and you're spiraling because, like Chuck was saying, you get a diagnosis and you have to wait for the healing, then what do you do in the meantime? You have to do something. You have to shake yourself out of that spiral. So you have to find your modality of peace. And if you don't know that, then you are going to have to put the work in to try to understand it. So that is you're going to have to put the work in, and the commitment and the discipline and the obedience that you have for yourself is the ability that you're going to have to maintain that and to heal. But I believe in the healing. I believe all the way. People have the ability to heal themselves. It's just, how bad do you want it?